The Stanford Cardinal just got surprising news on their injury report. Here's how it's going to impact the matchup with Miami.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about some big recruiting visits coming this weekend. Miami's got a number of flip targets, players they would love to get in that class of 2026. Got some big 2027s as well coming in this weekend. You'd like to put on a show for these guys. And on that note, we'll talk about Miami's keys for putting up what I hope is a comfortable, feel-good win against an overmatched on paper. But the game's played on grass, not paper. But Stanford is overmatched compared to Miami. However, Stanford got some really good news on their Thursday night injury report. And this came as a big surprise to me. I had been operating throughout the week with the suspicion that starting quarterback Ben Gulbranson, really important. It's not to say he's having a great year statistically per se, but Ben Gulbranson, who's a fifth-year guy, experienced Oregon State former quarterback, a really important part of Stanford's offense. Remember, Gulbranson, he left the game before halftime against Florida State injured, did not return knee injury. I had been kind of thinking he's probably not going to play this Saturday, but then the Thursday night injury report comes out, and he's listed as probable. So Stanford will likely have their starting quarterback returning for this game. Now, I don't want you guys to misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Gulbranson playing means Miami's going to lose the game or they're going to suffer an upset loss. I'm not saying that, but this is, and you know what? If you're Miami and you want to prove yourselves and bounce back big time after a tough loss last week, I hope everybody plays. Like, I hope Gulbranson goes out there and looks great, and Miami can go out there and shut him down when he's at his best. So I'm not running from the smoke, but I'm telling you, had Gulbranson not played, and Stanford would have to rely on very inexperienced backup Elijah Browning. The only action Browning has gotten this season was in the second half of that Florida State game where he went 6 for 12 for 71 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He got sacked in the game. Gulbranson does make a difference for Stanford. Without Gulbranson, it would probably get really, really ugly out there. We'll talk about the impact on that in a second. But there are some other important players that the Cardinal will be without in this game, including their leading rusher, Micah Ford. He's listed as out on the injury report. Their second running back, Cole Tabb, is listed probable, so you expect him. Same thing with Gulbranson. A probable designation means you're going to play. It's just you haven't been 100%. Miami doesn't even mess around with the probable. Miami doesn't do probable designations. You're either questionable or you're out or you assume you're in and healthy. But Stanford's leading rusher is out. Their second leading rusher is probable. Their second leading rusher, Cole Tabb, has 312 yards, 2 touchdowns, but being without Ford is going to force Tabb to carry a bigger load, and those two are typically used as a 1-2 punch, with Ford being the 1 and Tabb being the 2 of the punch, so they're without their top guy. That's going to have an impact on Stanford being able to run the football, and it's going to give an opportunity for Miami's rushing defense to bounce back after having a really poor outing against Isaac Brown at Louisville last week. Isaac Brown is not walking through that door this time around. Another important player that Stanford will be without is their starting nickel corner, Jay Green. He's listed as out. Stanford also has a starting safety, good player, Mitch Legber, who is, because of a targeting ejection last game, he was ejected in the fourth quarter, so he's going to have to miss the first half of this game. So one of their top safeties will be out, one of their top defensive backs. Now, the top defensive back, period, in my opinion, on Stanford is cornerback Colin Wright, who is on the injury report, but he's probable. So that's an important player that Stanford will have in this game. So you've got some key players out, but for Stanford, having Gulbranson, and we'll see if he's, anywhere close to 100%. Like, is he going to be playing hobbled? Is he really better? Does Stanford just feel like, hey, it's Miami, so we have to make him play? I guess we'll find out how he looks throughout the game. But, I guess I shouldn't be that surprised that Gulbranson is playing because, we usually see this happen when Miami is next on the schedule. Any injured player gets the Wolverine healing powers. And I'm good, coach. It's Miami. I'm good. But hey, in no ways am I making an excuse for this. Whether Gulbranson plays or not, Miami should be able to win this game comfortably. Now, have the betting lines been affected by the news that Gulbranson is expected to play? I guess maybe a little bit. You guys know I've been tracking the spread all week long on FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. And for the majority of the week, Miami has been a 30.5-point favorite. The line has moved now to Miami minus 29.5 on FanDuel. I think there are some other places where you see it at 28.5. That's not a significant movement. I guess the spark of that slight movement was probably the news that Gulbranson is likely going to play this week. It could just also be with a number that big, people tend to bet on the underdogs anytime you've got a conference game, Power 4 versus Power 4, and somebody's favored by 30 points. Just naturally, the money is going to come in on the underdog. So the line has moved slightly, but it's virtually the same that it's been all week, whether you're getting it at 29.5 on FanDuel, maybe 28.5 some other places. Miami is still favored by more than 4 touchdowns in this game. And when we come back, I want to give you my keys to the game for the Hurricanes. And these are keys not only to win the game, which is objective number one, just freaking win. But of course, in a game where, again, you do have a lot more firepower than the opponent and you have some things to prove after losing last week and after lacking in certain areas for the past several weeks, Miami not only needs to win this game, they need to fix some areas of their game that have been lacking in recent weeks. And you're also in a position now when you don't control your own destiny for a conference championship. Style points do become important as well, as we're a couple weeks away from the college football playoff rankings when they start to cycle in. So you want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new Friday episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward. Now, normally I go with an actual in-game performance, but I'm going to go a little bit off the board in this one and talk about Mark Fletcher Jr., who I think when it comes to him being, in my view, the spiritual and emotional leader of this football team, leaning on his attitude to make sure one loss doesn't define this team is important. Fletcher told me after the game, he says, I told everyone, being his teammates, don't panic, get back to work, get back to what we're good at, and we're going to be just fine. So Mark Fletcher is going to help this team move the game forward from here on out. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I take you around the conference. We talked about the big games coming up this weekend. You got Miami versus Stanford tonight. You got a full slate coming up on Saturday. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, and we're available free on YouTube. All right, so looking at my big keys to the game for Saturday, and this is not only to win, but to also show you're fixing some of the issues that you've had throughout the year. On Saturday night, I want to see Miami turnover free. Stanford Cardinal has only created 1 interception so far this season. So for Carson Beck, coming off a 4 INT game against Louisville, you have an opportunity against a team that has not done a good job this year creating turnovers. I want to see on Beck's stat line, I want to see a goose egg under the interception number there. And also, like, I don't Stanford has forced, they've recovered 4 fumbles this year on defense. I'm knocking on wood right now because I don't want to be the jinx, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Miami has lost a fumble yet this year. So let's stay interception free, let's stay fumble free, and let's keep it clean. And speaking of keeping the game clean, I want to see the Hurricanes clean up the penalties. This is more about Miami than it is about Stanford, right? The self-inflicted wounds, pre-snap penalties, some unsportsmanlike stuff. Some of these calls are BS. Like, I still don't understand why they gave that 15-yarder to Malachi Toney last week after he did the pancake block. It's like, I feel like if these officials are looking for a reason to call it unsportsmanlike, they can do it on just about every play because guys are talking and jawing after every play. So, I mean, some of it's just ridiculous, but still, we need the discipline. We don't need to be derailing our drives with, whether it's pre-snap stuff or post-snap stuff. We need to cut that nonsense out. Miami right now is tied for 81st in the country in fewest penalties. So 81st meaning they're in the bottom half right now. Hurricanes have been penalized 47 times already this season. In 6 games, they've been penalized 47 times. For reference, the least penalized team in the country is Iowa with just 16 penalties. So Miami's been penalized 31 more times than the least penalized team in the country. Got to clean that up. I want to see dominant defense from your Miami Hurricanes. Stanford this year, they have scored 30 points or more, exactly 30 points twice this season, but it's only been against terrible defenses like San Jose State and Boston College. Now, meanwhile, Miami, to be fair, we haven't scored 30 or more points in over a month. September 13th against USF when Miami scored 49. That was the last time Miami scored over 30. So I want to see Miami do that. Stanford ranks 94th in the country in scoring defense. They give up a little over 27 points per game. So I want to see both things happen. I want to see Miami keep Stanford under 20 points, and I want to see Miami score well over 30, hopefully into the 40s in this game. That's what you want to see in terms of the style points being earned. This is the first ever meeting, by the way, between Miami and the Stanford Cardinals. So we are making history on Saturday night. And on that note, we talked a little bit yesterday about the special edition camouflage uniforms. Let me pull this up. For those who are listening to the audio version, camo green pants, full camouflage jerseys with black numbers, black helmets to go along with those. I mean, it's something. I don't know. Now, as I said yesterday, I really support our troops, and I'm glad Miami is making this gesture. The actual uniforms, I don't know. For example, I showed these to my son last night. I'm taking my 7-year-old son. He's a hardcore Miami football fan, Luca, taking him to the game tomorrow. And I showed him this uniform, and his literal reaction was, "What the heck? These are ridiculous," is what he said to me. You know what? Just win. If Miami goes out there and stomps Stanford in these uniforms, no one's going to be complaining about it afterwards. If Miami loses to Stanford, we will collectively burn all of these uniforms. And by the way, if Miami were, not saying this will happen, because I think Miami will win the game comfortably, but if Miami were to lose, Stanford's win as a, whether it be 29.5 or 28.5 point underdog would be the biggest upset of the season so far, with the previous biggest being UCLA as a 25 point underdog beating Penn State. So do not let Stanford beat you outright tomorrow. Let's win the game comfortably. But those are the uniforms that we're going to be wearing. If you're coming to the game as a fan, I guess if you have any camo, maybe you wear it. I'll be wearing orange and or green to the game, or black. I've got my black Miami Knights shirt and hat on today. I'll come up with something. I'll be in Miami's colors at this game, but those are the uniforms that we're going to be looking at on Saturday. All right, so here are some players that I would like to see on the Miami side step up and get more involved in this game, because this is, the first, easier on paper game that you're going to have in a long time. If you think about the stretch Miami's on, just lost to, a very good Louisville team. You had 2 rivalry games prior to that and like 8 bye weeks prior to that, but you had a rivalry game against Florida State, a rivalry game against Florida. Miami hasn't really had like an opportunity to be, overmatching the opponent in quite some time. So this could give you a chance to get some more reps and maybe a little more confidence to some of your players. I would love to see more Jordan Lyle on Saturday. Give Lyle some full series. Don't be bringing him in and out one carry after another. Give him a chance to create some rhythm, and let's see Lyle break something outside the tackles. I think we all want to see maybe some more toss plays, some more counter plays in the running game. Everything's been between the guards. It seems to have gotten a little bit predictable. So, we want to see more variety from Miami's running game this week. And Jordan Lyle, I think, is the guy probably best equipped to get outside the tackles and do something with it. I'd like to see another either Bryce Fitzgerald interception, another Jacoby Thomas interception, or both. Stanford's quarterback, Ben Gulbranson, who is expected to play, he's got 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions on the year. That ratio is not very good. I would obviously like to see sacks. I don't care who creates them. Ruben Bain is the most likely suspect. Akeem Mesidor. By the way, going back to the injury report, I spent a lot of time talking about the Stanford side. Didn't really talk about the Miami side. Akeem Mesidor did not appear on Miami's injury report, which is a good thing because he got a little hobbled, you remember, in that Louisville game. Kind of was in and out of the game, lower body injury type of thing. Mario Cristobal did indicate after the game that it's not a long-term thing, that he's good. So Mesidor's not on the injury report. The only players that are questionable for Miami, Bobby Washington, linebacker, who's been questionable pretty much all year, and defensive lineman Micah Newton. The only players that are out are, guys we already knew had long-term injuries. Hayden Lowe, Chance Robinson, tight end Dylan Ryman, offensive lineman Ralph Scroggins, offensive lineman Demetrius Campbell, tight end Jackson Carver, who had a season-ending injury. So there are no surprises on Miami's injury report. In fact, maybe a pleasant surprise that Akeem Mesidor is not on it. So I don't care if it's Bain. I don't care if it's Mesidor getting sacks. I would actually love to see younger guys like Armando Blunt or Marquise Lightfoot producing sacks in this game. But I want to see sacks in this football game. As you look at Stanford, Stanford has given up 22 sacks already this season. That's over 3 sacks per game on average, and it ranks them 115th in the country. So I'm sure Stanford, they watched the Louisville film, and they are, and Stanford, to their credit, they've got a former NFL head coach and a former NFL quarterback is their head coach right now, Frank Reich. So he's not stupid. Like, Stanford is a really, it's hard enough to get into Stanford. It's a very smart football team, and I'm sure they're going to try to replicate quick passing game. Gulbranson, another reason why it's important Gulbranson is playing with his experience level, try to get rid of the football really quickly and scheme around Miami's pass rush. Now, thankfully, they don't have anyone as good as Chris Bell at receiver or Isaac Brown at running back. So if Miami's able to get them behind the sticks and force some big 3rd and longs, eventually, I believe in this game, you can't completely scheme around Miami's pass rush, and they're going to be able to get off and produce some sacks. And stopping sacks is something Stanford has been horrific at so far this season. 115th in the country in sacks allowed. What else I want to see in this game? Give me Josh Moore and or JoJo Trader. Give me some combination, because I know this team has depth at receiver beyond the same 3 guys who have, 2 of them especially have been really good, but I know they have depth beyond CJ Daniels and Malachi Toney and Keelan Marion. So I would like to see at least a 4th receiver and maybe a tight end or 2 as well, get more involved in the passing game. But the guy that I've been itching to see more of since the USF game is Josh Moore. I mean, he had 2 long touchdowns in that game, looked impossible to cover, had a breakout performance. Like, I'm hoping Josh Moore can do that again, and maybe this is the week for him to do it. And I think most importantly in this game, and penalties are part of this, but give me attention to detail, because that's something, I've watched that Louisville game back too many times. Like, I'm tired. I want new film to be able to watch. So please do something good against Stanford. But in the Louisville game, people point out the play calling and, oh, look how predictable and boring Mario is and Shannon Dawson. Yeah, I guess that was part of it. But another big part of that Louisville loss was the lack of attention to detail. The film from that Louisville game showed some horrific lacks in gap integrity on defense, a lot of bad tackling angles, and also some uncharacteristically sloppy blocking on offense. Some by the offensive line, some by receivers and tight ends. But that's just the sort of stuff, to me, it's like when you get complacent and when you lose your focus and lose your edge is when you start, missing your tackling angles, which resulted in 28 missed tackles. 28 missed tackles in that Louisville game. 16 missed tackles on Isaac Brown alone. Like that, you want to burn that game film from Louisville. So attention to detail is going to be super important in this game. Miami's going to have some big-time recruiting visitors, including a number of flip candidates, like a 6'5.5" wide receiver. Milan Paris is going to be at the game. A kind of a surprise, I'm not going to say surprise, but like a late confirmed visitor, a tight end committed to Colorado that Miami and some big programs are trying to flip. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, it's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Guys, for your Miami Hurricanes, we all know Malachi Toney is on a streak. Like, he has been Miami's best offensive player this year, had 9 receptions for 135 yards, a rushing touchdown, and a passing 2-point conversion touchdown against Louisville. When the pressure was on, Malachi Toney delivered, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know that performance wasn't a fluke. Malachi Toney is on a streak. And just like Toney delivered for the Canes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save on every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Oh, folks, we're also proudly brought to you by FanDuel. NFL season is here. College football is in full swing. FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss, because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. Guys, I build parlays on the regular. I do player props. I even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so let's talk about some of the big-time class of 2026 recruiting visitors. And you guys know that a lot of Miami's recruiting targets for this upcoming cycle are either flip targets, like outright flips, or in some cases, players who recently decommitted from other programs. So it's like kind of a flip, but, guys who have already decommitted from where they were at. Here's one that would be an outright flip, and this was big. I saw this confirmed later in the week. Miami is going to host 4-star Colorado Buffaloes committed tight end Gavin Mueller. Now, the Hurricanes, they're looking for another tight end in this class to pair with Izzy Briggs. They've had Israel Briggs committed since the summer. Miami's been looking for another and someone who kind of complements his skill set. Other players that are after Gavin Mueller, you could say, oh, he's committed to Colorado, but look at the programs that are trying to flip him. Along with Miami, you've got Alabama, Auburn, and LSU are also very much in the mix for Mueller. So him making the visit this weekend, hopefully Miami can, not only win the game out there, but show him the sort of hospitality, because he'll be on campus as well, I'm sure, and then at the game at Hard Rock Stadium. So, I know Miami's recruiting department does a really, really good job, and they're going to pull out all the stops here. So 4-star Colorado committed tight end Gavin Mueller will be here. A player we've talked about frequently on Locked On Canes, 4-star wide receiver Milan Paris. So former Iowa State commit, decommitted from Iowa State earlier this month. He's going to be at the game on Saturday. This is a player who you got to love his size and his ability. 6'5.5", 195-pound receiver. Other programs that are after Paris, since and before he decommitted from Iowa State. Oklahoma is big in it for him. It was actually right after a visit to Oklahoma that he decommitted from the Cyclones. So Oklahoma, Auburn, and Oregon are among other programs in the mix for Paris. And, Miami, you can tell Miami really wants to have an elite wide receiver class of 2026 because they already have 3 verbal commits from good players. Vance Spafford, 4-star slot receiver who was formerly committed to Georgia. Miami's got him committed. Miami's got Samori Wingo committed, who's just been awesome in high school, and another big target in Tyron Evans, who I think is in the 6'3", 6'4" range, but Milan Paris is 6'5.5". So I think it's a situation, like you can see Miami pushing for a couple of guys like that. Obviously, the Hurricanes have not given up for Calvin Russell, who's a big target. South Florida kid committed to Syracuse. Now, like Calvin Russell, he's still saying all the right things about being committed to Syracuse, and I know Fran Brown is a hell of a recruiter. There's a lot of things working against him there. I mean, you're asking a South Florida kid to go to Northern New York, which is a hard sell, but so far they have him sold on that. And then, of course, Syracuse is also really struggling on the field this year. But despite that, Fran has built a really good relationship with Calvin. I'm sure the basketball component, if Syracuse seems like they're more willing to let him play basketball than Miami or whoever else, that's going to be high on his list. But in terms of Miami, not only is it the hometown team, but Calvin Russell is really good friends with Malachi Toney, and he sees what Toney is doing this year. So I don't think Miami would get both of them, but, they're still heavily recruiting Milan Paris, who's visiting this weekend, and Calvin Russell, who's visited Miami a couple of times already this fall. Calvin Russell, by the way, is not going to be visiting this weekend, not to my knowledge. I just threw him in there because I wanted to throw him in there. Another player who will be visiting on Saturday, 4-star edge rusher Dre Quinn out of Buford, Georgia. He's going to be visiting Miami for the first time. This player is also being heavily recruited by the likes of Tennessee and Ohio State. He recently decommitted from Clemson. He's a former Clemson commit, 6'4", 228 pounds. Miami, they're really swinging for the fences at edge rusher, as you would expect they would when you've got a guy like Jason Taylor on the staff. Miami has already a blue-chip edge committed in Ashari Charles, who obviously Miami's trying to keep Ashari committed to get him over the finish line. They'd love to pair him with a guy like Dre Quinn. Now, Gabby Arudi at Inside the U also noted that there's a handful of Miami commits who are scheduled to visit this weekend, including Miami's top verbal commit, 5-star offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell is going to be at the game. Cantwell has been rock solid since he committed. It was, spring that he committed to Miami. He's not wavered. He's not really entertaining anybody else, which is great. He's going to be the foundation of this class. Committed wide receiver Samori Wingo, who recently said he was shutting down his recruitment, which is good. He will be here. Another one who shut down his recruitment, Jalen Seatbelt Waters, cornerback, is going to be visiting. And defensive lineman Freddie Saintius. Miami also gets a crystal ball prediction to land a defensive lineman, courtesy of Stephen Wagner at Kane Sport put in the prediction for Miami to land recent UNLV decommitted defensive lineman Isaiah Broughton. Says Miami is a top 3 school for him right now. Houston and one other program not specified is in the mix. Miami did a school visit for him during one of their bye weeks, went up to see him play. And Isaiah Broughton, he's a big player out of Cypress Ridge, Texas, 6'4", 315 pounds. So 6'4", 315. This is a Bruce Warner type of defensive tackle with those dimensions. And he's also got NFL pedigree. His older brother is a defensive lineman for the New Orleans Saints and a former SEC defensive lineman, all SEC, Vernon Broughton. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On Canes your first listen. By the way, Prediction? Should I drop it? I'm going to do another episode either tonight or early tomorrow with our guy Jim Greasehopper, the postcast king. I know Miami is favored by 29.5 in this game. I think this is a situation where it's a huge number. I think Miami can still win comfortably without covering the spread. I'm going 38-13 Hurricanes, which would have Miami winning by 25, which would normally seem like a good win against an ACC opponent. But I know if Miami wins the game by 25, my next episode will have people like, this team's terrible. You can't even cover the spread against an awful team. Like, it's a huge spread. I think Miami's going to win this game by almost 4 touchdowns. I'll say that. I'm going 38-13 Miami. And as long as the Hurricanes can keep the mistakes down, keep the penalties down, keep the turnovers to 0, get your running game going again, and just eliminate the sloppiness that we've seen on defense, I'm going to come away happy with this one. And I might even come away happy with the camo uniforms if Miami wins comfortably. We'll talk to everyone again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.